Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Sunday, the 7th of April, 2024. And last week, gold reached multiple all-time highs and closed at an all-time high. Silver rose, in percentage terms, twice as much as gold, though it is considerably off its all-time high. The exciting thing is, there is potentially more rises to come. Why do we say that? Well, let's take a look. First, just a quick reminder, we've set up a second channel entitled Finances Do Matter, covering a whole array of financial topics. We've placed a link in the description box and comment section below for those who have not, as yet, joined that channel. Now, gold rose $97 last week after the previous week's rise of $67, rising from $2,233 to $2,330, having hit a high of $2,331, so it closed just $1 below its high, and a low of $2,229, a rise of 4.3%. In our last update, we predicted gold would trade between $2,200 and $2,325, which it did most of the week, but managed just to surpass even this high in the last few hours before closing, albeit by just $8. Gold spread between high and low was $103. In sterling terms, gold finished the week at £1,846. That's up £76. And in euros, it closed up 82 euros at 2,153 euros. Now, silver performed better. It rose $2.53. How long has it been since it's risen that amount? Moving from $24.98 to $27.51. Having momentarily, not for long, hit a high of $28.24 and a low of $24.77. A rise of 10%. Double that of gold. Last weekend, we forecast silver would move between $23.75 to $26.75, which it did most of the weekend, and looked as if it would close within that range until a late spurge on Friday, closing strongly. The difference between its high and low was a significant $3.45, and when you compare that with just 88 cents difference the previous week, it shows the magnitude of its movement this past week. We said last week we'll have some catching up to do with silver, and it made a very successful attempt to do so. In sterling terms, it was up £2 at £21.80, and in euros up 2.25 euros at 25.43 euros. The gold to silver ratio fell significantly from 89.4 to 1 to 84.7 to 1. Bitcoin is down $2,407 on the week at $67,883. Equities were lower, though they did rise on Friday by an average of 1%. The Dow Jones down 903 points at 38,904. The S&P 500 down 50 points at 5,204. And the Nasdaq Composite down 131 points at 16,248. The FTSE was also down 41 points at 7,911. Oils unfortunately continue their ascent, which is not going to have a good effect on inflation. Brent crude is up $4.17 at $91.17, and WTI crude up $3.74 at $86.91. The dollar index is also up by 0.19 points on the week at 104.29. Last weekend, we pointed out there was a significant amount of economic data being released by the United States, but Friday's non-farm payroll would be the most important. Now, to recap what happened last week, manufacturing and services PMIs were broadly in line with expectations, some a little higher and some a little lower. Factory orders were a little higher than expected. The ADP employment report for March was almost 30,000 new jobs higher than the previous month, and the US non-farm payrolls once again obliterated expectations by over 100,000 new jobs, providing a March figure of 303,000. 100,000 new jobs for March, resulting in the unemployment rate falling from 3.9% to 3.8%. And this has now stayed below 4% for 26 months in a row, the longest stretch since the 1960s. Now, under these circumstances, one would have expected precious metal prices to fall, as such a robust jobs growth would suggest it will take longer for interest rates to decline. However, the market is beginning to believe that you can have high growth, high employment, and low interest rates, and so far the Federal Reserve is not suggesting otherwise. When the next CPI figures are announced, which are due on Wednesday the 10th of April, we shall see if these figures support that view. Now, the market is expecting both CPI and core CPI to read 0.3% for March, thereby lowering the CPI year over year, this is the core CPI year over year, from 3.8% to 3.7%. If these figures do not disappoint, markets will continue to go higher. On Thursday, we have the Producer Price Index, and these provide a forward glance or guidance at future price rises. And again, these will be important to observe. But all eyes will be on Wednesday this coming week. So what is happening to gold and silver? Well, traders are expecting another all-time high and believe that gold will hit somewhere between $2,348 to $2,355 this coming week. We said last week that, strictly speaking, gold should consolidate or retrace a little before the next leg up. But we did suspect this would not, and it did not happen. What certainly is helping gold further are rising tensions in the Middle East and a flight to safe haven assets, in addition to all the other reasons we gave last weekend. If you haven't listened to that video, we suggest you do so. Silver is following gold's lead and in terms of price action exceeded it this past week. But it did have some catching up to do, which it has done if we take the last 6 months' figures, because over that time, gold has risen 29% and silver 31%, whereas for a significant period of time, silver has trailed gold. Much now depends on how strong the market feels interest rates will decline in June, and CPI and PCE figures in between are crucial in providing such guidance. It's been our view for the past 2 years that 2024 will be the year for gold, and silver will see all-time highs, that's above $50, a little later in the decade, perhaps 25 or more likely 26. That said, there is no doubt that traditional investors are reverting back to precious metals and central banks are leading the way. So, where do we see gold and silver prices heading this coming week? Well, gold we envisage will trade between $2,300 and $2,380, with $2,275 in case there is some consolidation and $2,400 as outliers. Silver, well, frankly, that could move in either direction and at a great pace. However, our best estimate is that silver will trade normally between $26.75 and $29, with $26 likely to be the floor and $29.50 to be the ceiling. What do you think? Please do share your thoughts. Meanwhile, thank you so much for listening. We'd appreciate it if you'd give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, press the bell sign, pop on over to Finances Do Matter and subscribe there if you haven't done so, and have a safe, enjoyable weekend. And most certainly, it looks like a very prosperous week and month ahead.